President Trump does say Russia will face, quote, severe consequences if a deal is not reached soon to end the war with Ukraine. Trump made the comment a short time ago. You watched it here at the big reveal of the Kennedy Center Honors nominees while speaking with reporters. Just before that, as we mentioned, the president spoke virtually with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky and European leaders ahead of Trump's face-to-face meeting with Russian President Putin. Zelensky told Trump that Putin is, quote, trying to apply pressure on all sectors of the Ukrainian front in an attempt to show that Russia is capable of occupying all of Ukraine. The high-profile and high-stakes meeting, as I mentioned, between Trump and Putin set for Friday right here in Anchorage, Alaska. I do want to bring in a guest to discuss all of this, including the conversation between Trump and Zelensky, as well as what to expect with Trump and Putin. Let's bring in John Hardy, the Russia Program Deputy Director at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
Thanks for having me on.
Of course. And first off, I did want to ask you overall, because that virtual meeting took place earlier on today, and this is 2 days before Trump and Putin are going to come face to face. So when you talk about the significance overall of Trump speaking with Zelensky and other European leaders, how significant is that, especially considering the timing here?
Yeah, I think coordination and kind of presenting a united front going into the Alaska summit is very important. Putin is going to be trying to paint Ukraine and the Europeans as the intransigent parties and redirect Trump's pressure onto them. So it's very important that Trump kind of shut that down. And that starts now in the lead up to the summit by presenting a united front and getting on the same page with our partners.
How has the relationship that we've seen over the past several months kind of changed between President Trump and President Zelensky there, especially considering the confrontation that they had inside the Oval Office just months ago?
The relationship has come a long way since that contentious Oval Office meeting that I'm sure your viewers all remember back in late February. I think it has ups and downs, but I think President Zelensky has found a way to speak to President Trump that is effective, and I think, frankly, they've had some help from Putin due to his obstinacy and his refusal to stop striking deep within Ukraine, including civilian targets like maternity hospitals. I think those strikes in particular have really resonated with Trump and helped convince him that it is in fact Putin and not Ukraine that is the obstacle to peace.
What should we expect from that meeting between Trump and Putin taking place once again in Anchorage, Alaska on Friday? Anything specific that we should be watching for?
Well, it's important to temper expectations on outcomes. And frankly, I think peace will be impossible so long as Putin conditions a ceasefire on maximalist demands that are just non-starters for Kyiv. Like his demand for Ukrainian withdrawal from the rest of the Donbass. That's not going to happen. President Zelensky has made that clear. So part of President Trump's mission in Alaska is to kind of start working on Putin and persuading him that if he wants peace, he's going to have to be more willing to compromise.
What is it that both Russia and Ukraine maybe want that they're not willing to give up? We've heard a lot about land and the possibility of that being involved, but what are maybe the red lines there that they're not willing to cross?
Well, for Ukraine, I think it's just important to remember their overall objective of remaining independent and secure and having a prosperous future. And that's really incompatible with some of the demands that Moscow has made. So things like demilitarization of Ukraine, for example, putting really harsh caps on Ukraine's military size and capabilities. That's a non-starter. Kyiv has made that clear. The Europeans have. And actually, the Trump administration has said that that's a non-starter as well. So, things like that. Zelensky's made clear he's not going to unilaterally withdraw from territory. If there are any land swaps, they're going to have to be reciprocal and mutually acceptable. I think Putin, above all else, will push for Ukrainian neutrality. Now, the Ukrainians say they're not willing to give a formal veto on their potential accession to NATO, But at the end of the day, it's de facto up to President Trump or a future U.S. administration. So that could be something that's on the table. I think what's really important is that as we look ahead, Ukraine needs to be secure. If it's weak, it invites a follow-on war, which is already a significant risk. So we'll have to do what we can, working with the Europeans to supply Ukraine with arms, training, other assistance they need, in addition to the economic investment for reconstruction, to enable them to have that secure and prosperous future.
And once again, you are taking a live look there over in Anchorage, Alaska. That is where that face-to-face meeting will be taking place Friday. I did want to ask you, why are these talks happening specifically in Alaska? Is it essentially just based on the location?
Could be part of it. I don't know the behind the scenes of how the two parties reached this, reached the decision to hold it here. There obviously is some historical significance given that Alaska used to be part of Russia. So perhaps they chose that for symbolic reasons.
All right, John Hardy, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here and help break it down. Obviously, all eyes are going to be on that situation, the meeting there between Trump and Putin taking place Friday. Thank you again for taking the time to join us here and help break it down.
Glad to do it.